Hello, everybody. Um, the race is over, and we have a champion to discuss. The NASCAR Truck Series champion um, is decided. And, you know, I guess we could talk first about the format and the race itself. I mean, there's a lot to break down. Um, you know, it sucks in a way. Like I guess I'm a bit of a stickler for it, and you know I, I guess in a way um the format itself probably needs a bit of work. Uh, I still, like I said, I'm one of those people, like, I don't mind the way that they do things now. Um, it's one of those things, man, that I wish that the system itself, I think, needs something. I couldn't even tell you what it is specifically that needs to be changed. I think whatever it was about this race, and it could just be that it doesn't feel like a championship race. Um, Mainly because it there's no fans, there's not really a ton of media. So, yeah, it lost a little bit of um, its luster, I think. Ultimately, it really was a battle between just 2 teams, but one was very much a, very, very good, battle. I think had had the competitors in the finale being a little different, we probably would have seen more chaos. I think it was tried a little bit, but I would say that what we got was a very tame season finale, all things considered. Um, I don't know. I don't know if it was really um, the best track that they could have chosen for a finale. Uh, and I guess in a way, I guess in a way, the driver that won the title was the correct one. Um, Sheldon Creed has ultimately been the best. Um, I'd say, I mean, Brett Moffitt, as much as people, and myself included, we like Brett Moffitt. To me, Brett was not the most consistent guy this year. He wasn't. Um, just gonna make sure we got the laps for MD on there. Uh, he wasn't, consistent, and he only won one race this year. I think Sheldon, Zane, um, Grant, they had multiple wins. It was a little weird at the end of the day saying that that we've got a championship crowned at Phoenix. Uh, I've only known NASCAR ending its season at Homestead Miami Speedway. That's the only place that I have um, seen the finales. So, yeah, it kind of it sucks a little bit that that's kind of the case, and I still feel like maybe this type of track isn't where it needs to be. And then I kept thinking, like, is it a short track? Like, but then I'm like, well, we're gonna have the same problems if it's on short track. You're gonna have so much chaos. You're gonna have ridiculous moves by drivers, and it's not completely unexpected. It is a battle for championship, and I thought that we were gonna have one hell of a finish, if Enfinger had those 3 laps to chase down Moffitt. He was within 2.5 seconds, so he had an opportunity to win the championship. But at the end of the day, this was GMS's race to lose, and they had one of their championship drivers. First off, they've got 4 trucks full time this year. 3 out of the 4, all 4 made the playoffs. 3 out of the 4 make it into the finale. Their biggest competition all year has been Thor Sport. Thor Sport has 1 truck in the finale, only really because of the running from Grant Enfinger this year. Whereas, not Moffat, Crafton himself had moments where I think he was okay, but was he good? Was he great? I would say it was a bit of a miss this year for Thor Sport. Overall, obviously, Ben Rhodes being what Ben Rhodes is, um, made things a little chaotic for them. But again, like I said, at the end of every Truck Series season, we don't really find out much about the contract statuses and the team situations are. We know of some names that are back next year. Primarily, we know at least three of the GMS guys are all back. So it's going to be a little bit surprising to actually say that we're going to have a return champion next year. He's not moving up. Sheldon Creed has already committed to next year. What's interesting about Sheldon is that, and this is the one thing that we have to remember, is the Chevy accessories deal. That's more of a relationship because they don't have a primary sponsor for Sheldon. As far as I remember, it's similar to like the TRD, similar to Alex Bowman's Chevy Goods situation, in that you can have, if you don't have a sponsor, basically the manufacturer will pay to be on the truck. And I mean, we saw that for years in the Truck Series. I think if you go back to like 2004, Dennis Setzer and I know Jack Sprague, I think Mike Skinner, these guys all had their manufacturers on the car or on their truck because they didn't have a sponsor. And, one thing that we've had to kind of say, unfortunately, about GMS is they really have struggled to get full-time sponsorship for any one of those drivers. And let's remember another thing is that Sheldon Creed, when he was in ARCA, he had United Rentals. That was his sponsor. And, then he moved up and they were with him for a couple truck starts too. But Austin Hill also moved up. And ultimately they went with Austin Hill and not with Sheldon Creed. Now that could have been a situation when they be Toyota. They want to be in relationship with them. I'm not exactly sure, but at the end of the day, we've got a lot of decisions that have to be made still for next year. Whereas we know kind of what's going on with GMS, we don't know what's happening with the Thor Sport teams next year. Will we see Grant Enfinger with Champion back next year? I can't see a reason why not. He was the strongest of the Thor Sport trucks this year. Where I think the situation kind of lies is the veteran presence there. Is Matt Crafton going to retire after this year? Or is he going to stick around? Like, really, it is a pretty good deal. He got like 25 races, I think it is, for the Truck Series. And Crafton, where my interest really lies for him is that news that Menards was going to scale back their sponsorship this year or heading into next year. Now, it was, I believe, part of the talk was it was scaling back on Matt DiBenedetto potentially. So what happens with that, with Brandon Jones, with Matt Crafton, obviously, we will have to find that out. There's not a ton, unfortunately, that we know. They don't really talk about these. Like I said, even Jayski, who has all these silly season news, they don't really know the contract stuff for trucks. But we do know, of course, some names that are back. Obviously, like I mentioned, you've got the three. I would imagine the Thor Sport deal with Matt Crafton, it's basically if he wants to continue with the team, they're going to continue with him. That relationship's been going on for somewhere. Where I think the interesting spot is Johnny Sauter. Sauter had his worst year in the trucks. He didn't make the playoffs. He really wasn't competitive the entire year. And as far as I remember, he's not tied to those sponsors. Those sponsors are Thor Sport. And so, and we saw that with Tend to Heal, for example. Now, Vivitar also joined on the 13, so it's possible that the Tend to Heal moved over to help out Ben Rhodes because Ben wasn't able to get sponsorship. So this is where, again, they've got four names there, but not really. You've got Crafton, who was fully sponsored by Menards, but not Zane, but Grant Enfinger had Champion, but I don't believe Champion was with him for every single race. You also have Ben Rhodes, who didn't have a sponsor for every race until Tend to Heal started coming on there. And then you have Johnny Sauter. So are these sponsorships tied with those drivers? I think you're obviously going to have some names in the offseason. Michael Waltrip, the fact that he even questioned if Christian Eckes was going to be with the 18 next year is a very interesting move for him to make on commentary, because typically we wouldn't think of Eckes being a one and done. Former champion in the ARCA Menard series, and he's been good, but where would he go? Unless he's moving from to a different team. I don't know. I don't know where that fit is for him. So definitely, I would put it out there that you could definitely see Johnny Sauter be in a position to move. Could definitely be Ben Rhodes on the move as well. And then, of course, the Brett Moffitt, he really didn't seem like he was very interested in returning. Obviously, he's very upset at the end of that race. We'll talk about the race right now, in that I thought it was very underwhelming. Not that I was expecting that much for a race at Phoenix. I really hope that this is not the finale for years to come. And it's nothing, because I'm not going to say that based off of, what I expect the trucks or Xfinity or Cup are going to be like every year, because it's the very first year. But the racing was just not there. Essentially, the reason why this finished as crazy and interesting as it did was because there was a caution. If that caution did not come out, chances are this would have been Brett Moffitt's championship. At the very least, Grant Enfinger would have gotten there. I just don't think he would have had enough to pass him with 3 laps to go. And it basically came down to tires and a shootout. And again, I think this is what NASCAR wanted. They wanted something chaotic and crazy. We're lucky we didn't really get a ton of contact and rough racing. But it also, I think, a lot of people were not picking Sheldon Creed to win the championship. And I know myself and Graydon, we picked Zane Smith, and we almost got that right. He was really, really good tonight. At the end of the day, though, I feel like Sheldon Creed was very underrated and wasn't really picked, and he won. So that bodes well for the names that aren't Chase Briscoe, that aren't Denny Hamlin, to potentially sneak out and win the championship this year. The disappointment level, though, if I am in the GMS stable, that Brett Moffitt did not win that. They're first and to third in the championship this year. Grant Enfinger was up there. His crew chief made a great call. Jeff Hensley still doesn't win a championship in the truck series, and I really do have some questions for next year because we really don't know the status of the schedule. That's not been released yet. So we don't know if they're going back to CTMP. We don't know if they're going back to Eldora. We know Iowa's not going to happen. So I'm I really hope that we will see some new tracks on the schedule. And I'm not talking like Nashville. I mean like a truly a new track. If they're going back to Memphis, if they're going uh I don't know, to a road course perhaps, like a mid Ohio. I mean, overall the truck series once again was very interesting this whole season. Very fun, as it always is. And I think that it continues to produce a lot of talent. My worry though is that we're going to have um we're going to have the same situation where again we might have some drivers coming in, mainly Haley Deegan, who are going to be the center of attention. And the field again is so young. So to me, what I really like with this series is the balance between veterans and new up and coming drivers. Where it'll be interesting is what's going to happen with some of these other teams. We don't know what's happening with Nice. I believe there's talk that we're going to see Trevor Bayne full time, Carson Hocevar full time. If that's the two that they're going to go with, excellent choices. Obviously, they could still continue with their part-time trucks with Ryan Truex and Natalie Decker. Um, we'll probably still see Joe Cobb out there. You'll probably still see the Reum brother trucks out there. Probably still see Norm Benning, in a couple of races. Austin Hill, we know, is back next year, so he's automatically a favorite. But if Brett Moffitt is all of a sudden gone, does that 23 truck become a new star, or does that? And there's one guy that I think we all expect that's going to take it, being Sam Mayer. Now, Sam is supposed to drive some races for Junior Motorsports, but they didn't say which races he's running. So I think that what we're going to see is that 23 turn into the 24. David Gravel has been announced. I think he's returning to World of Outlaws next year full time. He really didn't get a lot of opportunity this year, but I think that maybe experiment is done for the time being, and we're going to see Sam Mayer move in to this team, and you're going to have literally a super team, because even if Brett stays, you're still going to have Tyler Ankrum, who maybe didn't have the best season this year in a new situation, which is fair, absolutely fair. But he's got sponsorship behind him, which is great. You're definitely going to have the champion from last year, Sheldon Creed. You're going to have Zane Smith. That's a huge threesome automatically. You add Sam Mayer to that, and you've got your next big star. You're not going to be alone. DJR Crosley is going to have more than likely you're going to see either Todd Gilliland and Tanner Gray stay, or one of them goes and Haley Deegan's coming in. We already know Haley's coming in. They haven't really said any sponsor announcements, so no Monster. Toter maybe would be on board with them. But it would appear to be strictly a Ford sponsorship. That's going to put her in the truck. And then, of course, you have the ThorSport team, which we really don't know any of those guys if they're confirmed to be back. I would say, more than likely Tendahil and Vivitar, Menards, they're dictating who's back. If Champion is still going to sponsor Grant, then he's back. I think Stuart Friesen is an interesting story. Is he back with the Kyle Busch Motorsports program? That was a disaster this year. He was horrible. Started to pick it up towards the end of the season, but it definitely didn't work, as you see now joining in. Um, so, you know, Thor Sport, I think, is going to be that's really where the question lies because that's your second strongest team in the Truck Series. I'd say your other super team. So we kind of figure out what's happening with them, what's happening with the schedule, and that we know we have some new stars coming in. Um, it'll be very interesting heading into next year. This whole kind of championship weekend at Phoenix. I mean, if there was another track in Arizona, and I'm sure there is out there, maybe trucks and Xfinity go there. I think that always doing and ending this championship on the exact same um, track, I don't know. To me, it just doesn't make it as exciting. The racing itself, like I said today, it was pretty substandard. It was follow. The first two stages essentially was no real passing for the lead. It was the same person out in front the entire stage. That does not bode well for a championship finale. Now, Xfinity has been a highlight this year. They have been constantly putting on fantastic racing. So it'll be very interesting tomorrow what happens with Chase Briscoe, what happens with the two Justins, and with Austin Cindric. I actually feel Austin Cindric might just steal this one. I have a feeling I mean, you had today it get kind of stolen, but entire if the entire weekend is similar to what we saw today in terms of um, the racing, then potentially we could just have a whoever gets the lead on the restarts is going to win the championship because nobody can get out there and catch them. You know, it, it. Listen, I love racing. I love this series. I love the truck series specifically. I think it's very, very competitive, very interesting and fun. But at the end of the day, we've got a champion that was made on a crazy restart, a good restart, mind you. But I'm not going to go out and say that I'm not disappointed for Brett Moffitt. I think that you know the wreck. It was a wreck at the end. Could they have maybe not thrown the caution? Yeah, but that's not what people I think were upset about. I think that they're upset about the whole deal here. Um, Maybe going forward, it is going to go to a rotating finale, and I would definitely be okay with that. So keep it tuned here to Cam K Racing for fan side updates. We'll be talking about each championship finale. We've got a couple of them. Obviously, Cup, Xfinity, Trucks. Also out there, if you're not aware, is the ARCA West Series championship finale is also tomorrow. So definitely make sure you check that out. Everybody stay safe. Thank you for tuning in. I didn't get anybody on the live stream here because I didn't really promote that we were going to do this, but definitely hopefully you're checking this out on a replay, and if you can, subscribe. All right, but everybody, ciao.